He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of 365 Sports. I guess today in Florida. This is a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show as we welcome you in. Thank you for tuning on in. And you can always get at me on the good old cesspool of Twitter or on Instagram where I'm straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Or you can follow me on TikTok at the Zach Gelb Show. We are on the air today. We will see if we'll be able to plow through until we say goodbye to you at about 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you subscribe as you're listening to the show on YouTube right now on our 365 Sports page. Sports orthopedic surgeon Dr. Brandon Erickson is going to join us coming up at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll get his thoughts on Dr. David Chow coming on out and saying Drake May injured his shoulder in the AFC Championship game. There has been some pushback in regards to what the sports doc did say. So orthopedic sports surgeon Brandon Erickson, Dr. Brandon Erickson, going to join us in about 20 minutes from now. And then coming up at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time, a man that is a Super Bowl champion, former NFL offensive lineman. If you're watching Good Morning Football earlier this AM on NFL Network, you did see him. That is former Steelers and Jets offensive lineman Willie Colon will join us coming up in about an hour from now. Yesterday, we were not able to get on the air, and I told Paul Catalina, who is our program director here at 365 Sports, that I may take a few shots at him in the opening monologue today. And it's something that Paul could have done to prevent the situation. But it is amazing how me being a Northeast guy and me being from New York and seeing huge snowstorms through the years, and New York got dumped in the city with a foot of snow, how our state reacts to it. And trust me, a lot goes wrong with our state compared to other states. And if it's my understanding, it was just an ice storm in Texas. And yesterday morning, I was getting ready for the show, and I get a text from John Valade and Corey Dickman, the great people that run 365 Sports, and Paul Catalina, my producer Garrett Ross, and Andrew Valade. And I was chuckling because, yes, I got stuck in Florida. I flew in Saturday morning. I had a wedding at the Breakers, which, by the way, is an unbelievable venue. And Tiger Woods' 50th birthday party was at the Breakers 10 days ago. So it was a bougie affair. And I thought I was going to get out Sunday morning. I thought there was a chance I would get snowed in. I said, someone asked me at the wedding at about 7 p.m. Eastern Time, what do you think your chances are that you'll get out at 7 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday? I said, I think about a 40% chance that I'll get out. So I was anticipating that I was not going to be able to get out. And at about 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm on the dance floor, moving and grooving, shaking my fanny, having the time of my life and drinking some whiskey gingers. And they gave you an individual raw bar at this wedding for the appetizer, where there was crab meat, there was shrimp, there was lobster. It was just stupid good. And at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, when everyone else's flight was getting already canceled, I got the alert from, I think it was United, that your flight tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern Time is canceled. So I said, it said, here's some rebooking options for you. So couldn't get out anything on Monday, obviously, because they canceled all the flights. Today, couldn't get anything unless if I wanted to connect and basically have a 3-hour trip be a 10 or 11-hour trip. So I was able to get a flight out tomorrow at 8:15 a.m. Eastern time. So those are going to be my travel plans. But the way that like I reacted to it as a New Yorker, where we got a foot of snow, and I'm not saying it wasn't bad in Texas, but my understanding of the situation was that it's just an ice storm. There was even a thought that we weren't going to be able to get on the air today, as our operations are based out of Waco, Texas. So I have been around people from warm environments and warm climates and how they deal with the snow. Like today in Florida, where I'm at, Boca Raton, Florida, it's 55 degrees. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt at 50. Like I took a walk this morning, a 4-mile walk. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. People are in their North Faces and they're in their sweatshirts. So in Texas, when they're not used to weather like that, I could understand why the entire state does shut down. I'll never forget, I was once in Dallas when there was a horrific ice storm. It was right before the Super Bowl, actually, which was Green Bay going up against the Steelers. And I was on the road with my dad, and we were driving on the highway. And you know, like a little crane that they would have in the park where they would pick up like dirt and move it. That's what those Stunads were doing, trying to get the snow off the highway. And I feared for my life. So I hope everyone's safe, even though we're going to have a little bit fun and we're going to poke fun at how the people in Texas, as I love you, obviously, can't handle any inclement weather when it comes to snow or when it comes to ice. And it's like panic out of 10, 20 out of 10. And then you have us in New York. It's like, all right, we got dumped with a foot of snow. This sucks. But with that being said, the dopey mayor in New York City is still going to do remote learning for everybody. So that's pretty much what has been going on for the last few days. And all kidding aside, even though we'll have some fun and we'll bust some balls, hope everyone is safe. Hope everybody is sound. And you get through some of the bad weather that we had. In New York, I thought that we were going to get hit with another foot of snow this weekend. And that's what was projected. That I woke up this morning and they said it's about only going to be an inch or two extra this weekend, which is amazing. I still can't believe when I left here for Florida and I was looking at the weather report in New York, they said that there's going to be anywhere between 3 inches to 2 feet of snow. Like, what a job that is, that you could predict that wide of a range and either be right or wrong, even in that wide of a range. And you could still have a job as a weatherman. You know, Garrett Ross and I, we probably got into the wrong profession doing sports talk. We probably should have been weatherman. Man, we probably could have made a whole lot of money. It's going to rain. It's going to snow. And just be wrong on it all the time. Like, how many times do we give out wrong picks? And, how many times do the weathermen just give out wrong forecasts? But they got this one pretty close to a T, so we will give them credit to that. All righty, let's get into the show today. Like I said, Dr. Brandon Erickson going to join us coming up in about 12 minutes from now. Willie Colon going to join us right at the top of the hour. And hopefully this is all working today. I'm on location. I'm at my grandmother's house. Garrett is home in his Waco, Texas palatial estate. So we're running on his internet and my grandmother's antiquated internet. So hopefully I'm still on the air. Hopefully I'm not freezing up. If I do freeze up at some time, the show must go on, and hopefully it's just the video that freezes and not the audio. Honestly, if you think about it, if the video freezes, it may be good for the listening audience that is watching us because they don't have to see my face as long as you hear my voice. That's what I all think that you do need. All righty. To the NFL, there's a few things I want to get into before the Drake May injury. Or should I say injury with air quotes, because I don't know how real it actually is. The Buffalo Bills have made a decision at the head coach. We know that they fired Sean McDermott after losing another gut-wrenching playoff defeat, this time at the hands of the Denver Broncos. And this time I didn't really think it was Sean McDermott's fault. It was the rare instance where I thought the majority of the blame could have been on either Josh Allen's shoulders or it could have been on the officiating in that game. I still thought it was a catch, but then yet again, you leave it in the hands of the officials. Your quarterback had so many turnovers in the game. That is probably what ultimately did you in. I have no problem with the Bills getting rid of Sean McDermott. I don't. So you look at Buffalo. He was there for 9 years. They made the playoffs 8 out of 9 years. He's been a really good coach before there. They were kind of in football purgatory, and they couldn't even sniff the postseason. So Sean McDermott stabilized this Bills franchise, got them back, made them a consistent playoff contender. After the Brady and Belichick days, they habitually won the AFC East. And there's a lot to be proud of if you're a fan of the Buffalo Bills. But when you're that close but yet so far, and you're an organization that has never won a Super Bowl, and you have a top 3 quarterback in the league, are you just going to accept the same shortcomings over and over and over again, or are you going to try to change something? And when you change something, it's not going to happen at the quarterback position. It's going to be at the coaching position. And they got rid of Sean McDermott. I don't have a problem with them getting rid of Sean McDermott. And now it's all about finding the next guy. Well, the Bills found the next guy today, and it's one of their own. They're promoting the offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, to the head coaching position. My immediate reaction to this is Josh Allen made this decision. And when I look at who the head coach of the Buffalo Bills is, it's not really Joe Brady in my estimation. It's Josh Allen. Josh Allen has all the power in the Bills organization. Josh Allen is the judge. He's the jury. He's the executioner. He's doing everything right now in that Bills organization. They let him sit in on the interview process. The question was, even though he's just sitting in on the interview process, was he going to pick and was he going to determine who the next head coach is by hiring Joe Brady? That answer to that question is without question, yes. Josh Allen made this decision. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I don't want to be overly critical of Joe Brady if things don't work out when the quarterback is the one that is ultimately making this decision in the way that I interpret it. And it's not like Joe Brady isn't qualified. I don't know how much better that you could have done compared to Joe Brady. Like Mike Tomlin wasn't coming back and coaching. John Harbaugh already picked the New York Giants. Like, you could wait for a Clint Kubiak. I guess Chris Shula is now available with their run with the Rams now being over. And you could say Clint Kubiak, you could say Chris Shula. All those guys are coordinators, just like how Joe Brady is a coordinator. And Joe Brady really came onto the scene as a rock star at LSU, has history with the Saints, has history with the Carolina Panthers, and then got to Buffalo and developed this relationship with Josh Allen. So we had Ty Dunn on, and we had Ty Dunn on going back to last week. It was on Friday, and he was the one that highlighted what ultimately did Sean McDermott in. Sure, 13 seconds. Sure, the playoff losses, but he made it clear it was just more than simply not getting over the hump in the postseason. It was because him and the quarterback were never fully in lockstep, fully on the same page. So if that's the case where Sean McDermott, who's a well-respected coach in this league, I'm not going to sit there and say he's great, but Sean McDermott is good. You get rid of Sean McDermott and you get into someone that we know, but as he's going to be as a head coach is relatively an unknown, just like when Sean McDermott got an opportunity to be a head coach and it worked more than it didn't work with the Buffalo Bills. This is clear that the Bills are now saying, we want a coach that's going to be on the same page as our quarterback, and we want the quarterback to feel comfortable. So how will Joe Brady address the defense? Who will be his defensive coordinator? I'm assuming Joe is going to be a head coach that calls plays on the offensive side of the ball, but we've seen before when you bring in a coach that is so involved on one side of the ball, sometimes he neglects the other side of the ball or he doesn't hire the right staff. I don't know what Joe Brady's going to do. I don't sit there and say Joe Brady is definitely going to win the Buffalo Bills a Super Bowl, but I can't tell you he definitely won't. You may see some of the same that you just saw with Sean McDermott, where they're really good, and ultimately they're either going to win or lose that playoff game. And sometimes you just need a reset. And maybe with this reset of going to Joe Brady and making it more of a Josh Allen environment, maybe that's all they needed was just a little reset in this team, and they get rid of the coach and they bring in someone that has familiarity, and you're going to need new players and better players on the defensive side of the ball, and we'll see who they hire as the defensive coordinator. So I don't love it, but I also don't hate it. And I understand you tune into the show and people want an opinion. People want an all or nothing opinion where it's either you're all in or you're all out. And that's what people usually want. But in this case, I look at this decision by the Buffalo Bills where it's like, okay, you made a move where clearly you're catering to your quarterback. Clearly your quarterback and your old head coach and Sean McDermott, like Ty Dunn told us, weren't exactly on the same page, didn't have a warm and fuzzy relationship. right? They didn't see eye to eye. And could you have hired a Clint Kubiak? Could you hired a Chris Shula? Could you have gone elsewhere? Yes, but it doesn't mean that those guys have a better chance to succeed than Joe Brady do. And you brought in someone that's familiar with the team, familiar with the offense, familiar with the quarterback, and you're going to hope that this change and this alteration in saying goodbye to Sean McDermott and promoting Joe Brady is going to change the course of action. But why I can't sit there and tell you that this definitely will work, and why maybe I could understand Bills fans wanting to bring in an outside voice, is because Joe Brady has been there for the last few years. Joe Brady was one of the people leading the offense in the postseason when the offense was turning the ball over left and right. So this is a move that the franchise quarterback ultimately determined. This is a move where the franchise quarterback said, this is who I want as the head coach. And what's paramount in the Bills organization? What's paramount? It's doing everything that Josh Allen wants to keep him happy so he stays there for the rest of his career. But the pressure, in my estimation, isn't on Joe Brady to win a Super Bowl. Like, it will be presented as, okay, Sean McDermott's out, Joe Brady is in. No, folks. The pressure is all on Josh Allen. This is now all on Josh Allen. And I think with how he played in the postseason this year, which for the first time he didn't play well, and now him being behind, in my estimation, Sean McDermott being out, and I get why they got rid of Sean McDermott. I'm not questioning this decision. But now him basically hiring the next head coach, who was the offensive coordinator this year, and making him the head honcho, he may be the head coach in title, but in reality, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills is Josh Allen. And if they win, and they win a Super Bowl, I will give all the praise to Josh Allen. But if it doesn't work, and if Joe Brady isn't ready for the moment, I will give all the criticism to Josh Allen as well. So that's where I'm at right now on this head coaching hire. I don't love it. I don't hate it. But the Buffalo Bills are sitting there and saying, we are catering to the needs of our quarterback. And our quarterback is the most important person in this organization, and he will ultimately determine our success for the short term and the long-term future of the Buffalo Bills. Josh, this is now all on you. Josh Allen, one of the best players in the league, maybe the greatest playmaker that the NFL has right now, one of the best quarterbacks in this league. The Buffalo Bills hiring Joe Brady isn't about Joe Brady becoming the head coach. It's that Josh Allen has all the power in the Bills organization, and I truly view now Josh Allen as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. All righty, let's get to my quarterback in Drake May. Or actually, we'll get to some of the videos from Drake May in just a bit. But now joining us is a sports orthopedic surgeon, and that, of course, is someone, by the way, that did play his college football at Notre Dame. See, this is a doc that played football, and now he operates on people to get them back on the field. Orthopedic sports surgeon Brandon Erickson here with us on the Zach Gelb Show on 365 Sports. Doc, how are you?
Zach, I'm doing great, man. Did you enjoy the snow this weekend?
I'm in Florida right now. So I got snowed in here. That's why you see like a purple background and I look like I'm in my grandmother's house. Because, yes, I'm in my grandmother's house in Boca Raton, Florida. So where are you located right now?
I'm in Westchester, New York. So, yeah, we got about 18, 20 inches. So it was pretty legit.
Wow. Okay. So, but you're right back into the operating room today, it looks like, right?
Yeah, I fixed a couple rotator cuffs and Achilles, couple knee scopes, the usual Tuesday.
Okay. So I was perusing Twitter last night, and the sports doc, Dr. David Chow, gets on there, and he's like, hey, Drake May got injured. And I'm a Patriot fan, and I'm like, Drake May got injured? He injured his shoulder? The Super Bowl's in 2 weeks. What's going on? After you reviewed the tape, what did you see, and should I be concerned?
Yeah, I think they were referring to one of the plays when he ran and got hit and kind of landed on his right shoulder. I've watched it a couple times, Zach, and I'll tell you, when he goes down, the good thing is his arm hits the ground, but then it kind of comes out in front of him, and it doesn't seem like it gets stuck. So a couple things can happen when you land on your shoulder, right? One is you can get an AC joint injury, right? We see that all the time. Quarterbacks get hit from the side, they land on their shoulder, get an AC joint sprain, the bone pops up a bit. can sometimes limit them for a week or two. And the other thing that can happen is if it gets hit pretty hard, you can do a little damage to what's called your labrum, which is the soft tissue covering that goes around the socket, helps keep the ball centered, or you can do a little damage to your rotator cuff, which is what helps you generate force to throw a ball. But I'll tell you, looking at the way he went down and looking how he played the rest of the game, and then listening to Vrabel talk afterwards, it doesn't seem like this was anything more than just a regular contusion or just a bruise that would happen if, you or I landed on our shoulder. And the thing we always have to keep in the back of your head is, for you and I, if we land on our shoulder and something goes awry or something goes wrong, it takes us a little bit of time to get back because we're not the athlete that Drake May is, but he's a high-level professional athlete. So the bumps and bruises that would maybe limit us are not going to limit him. So he's getting treatment now for the shoulder. I don't expect this to be an issue for him going into the Super Bowl. I think you're safe to, root for the Pats. My wife's a Pats fan, so I think, you and her are safe to have Drake as your quarterback going into Sunday in 2 weeks.
There's a lot of times in sports where people will say, everyone's hurt, but are you injured? And especially being this late in the year, it just seems like, okay, he's hurt, but he's not really injured. It seems like this is probably just he's going to have some soreness, right?
So you're exactly right on the hurt versus injured thing. And it's funny, I take care of a good amount of high school and college athletes, and that's something that guys and girls who are coming up through the pipeline, they have to learn at a young age. Are you hurt? Meaning things are bugging you. You're kind of banged up a little bit, but it's not that bad. Or are you actually injured? Did you sustain a real injury? Is this going to have to keep you out? And so by the time you get to the professional level, like Drake May is, he obviously has that well under wraps, and certainly the training staff for the Patriots has that under wraps as well. And so I agree with you. Most guys who play professional football this many weeks into the season, their bodies take a beating. Okay, it's week in, week out. You're right. I didn't play at this level, but even in college, the starters, they would get beaten up on Saturdays, and we'd have to have a day of recovery. They'd all get treatment for the first couple of days, and you wouldn't start putting next week's install in until Tuesday in college, so Wednesday in the professionals, because obviously the games are on Sunday. So you're right. I think hurt, yes, but injured to the point we're going to be worried about him missing a game? No. Now, will you probably see something out of their practice report that he's limited for a couple of days? Of course, because the Super Bowl is a week and a half away. So there's no reason for him to go back to a full participant in practice early this week. And the Patriots, as you know, being a fan, they're the team that lists the most people on the injury report every single week. Anybody that has any ailments listed on the Pats injury report. So I'd expect him to be on there, but I don't think this is going to limit him.
In terms of the testing that they've done, like now this is a public story, so there's going to be all these updates. I'm not saying they weren't doing testing beforehand, but if Drake went into the locker room after the game on Sunday and after, he got warm and it wasn't just, freezing because of the snow, he goes, hey guys, my shoulder's just not feeling 1,000% right. What are the things that they've done even Sunday night or Monday or even today, Tuesday, to just make sure that everything's okay?
Yeah. Anytime somebody comes in with any type of injury, the first thing is you got to take a look at them, right? So to the AC joint sprain question, does anything look funny on their shoulder? And it didn't, because we saw him in a post-game interview and he looked okay. So then they put him through a physical exam, right? So for the shoulder, it's range of motion. Can you get up overhead, test their strength of their rotator cuff, do some provocative tests to see if anything irritates or tweaks his shoulder when you examine it to kind of clue you into, okay, is anything really bad going on? And then if you're a little bit confused or, right after somebody gets an injury, their physical exam isn't always the most reliable thing because obviously if they're in pain, it's going to limit their ability to do the things you want to do on an exam. And especially in professional sports, we tend to get MRIs a little bit faster than we would if, again, you or I hurt our shoulders. So sometimes they'll get an MRI just to say everything looks good, you're clear, we're okay, we can get you back to throwing. The other thing we see on the MRI is guys who throw a football in professional football, they have problems with their shoulders, right? It's just like a pitcher in professional baseball. They all have some damage to the ligament in their elbow. Same thing happens in football quarterbacks. They all have some stuff you'll see on their MRI, on their rotator cuff, and that's all pretty normal for them. The question is, do you see anything big, full thickness tears in their rotator cuff, their labrum, which I don't think they'll see, but if they were concerned about it, they certainly would have gotten an MRI pretty quickly back in Boston.
I remember one time when the Patriots were playing the Chiefs, and it's when Tom Brady tore his ACL, he walked off the field. And I was like, all right, it looked like an ACL tear, but then he walked off the field, so maybe it's not as bad as what I thought. With Drake May, after this alleged injury supposedly happened, it was then the flea flicker was shortly after that, and he had a nice ball to Matt Collins. And after the game, this is what Patriot fans do now. Well, he was walking off that plane, and he had that bag, holding in his right hand and right on that right shoulder. does that give me a little okay, breathe easily, that he was still able to throw the football well and he was able to carry his bag off the plane? Because that's what people are telling me on social media.
It's funny, actually. You're exactly right. So you will see. So, for example, if he had an AC joint sprain, it hurts a lot to put any pressure on that. So, if that was an issue, he'd be wearing his backpack on the other side. And to your point with throwing the ball down the field afterwards, that's exactly right. If he had a big rotator cuff tear in his shoulder, there's a structural problem with his shoulder. So, he is not going to be able to get anything behind that ball to push it down the field. So actually, you can take a little bit of comfort in the fact that he did throw that ball down the field and he was wearing a backpack on that shoulder, because chances are he didn't have anything really wrong with his shoulder. Back to your point of hurt versus injured, it actually is a good clue for certain things. ACLs are funny. When you tear your ACL, if you tear part of your meniscus, you can actually put weight on your leg right afterwards. You saw it last week with Bo Nix when he fractured his fibula, or fractured his ankle, that bone in his ankle. He actually was able to play for a couple plays, and so everybody thought, oh, it wasn't that bad. Turns out he had probably a non-displaced fracture, and so that was an issue. But for the shoulder, it's a little bit different. It's such a complicated joint. For the shoulder ball to stay centered in the socket, a lot of things have to be working together. And for you to put some zip on the ball to get it down the field, it actually takes a lot of stress and puts a lot of stress on the shoulder. So if there was something really wrong, you probably would have seen it towards, at least if not in the next play or the play after, in the next quarter of playing the game.
Obviously, we're asking you for your opinion based off of what you've seen on video and what others are saying. And clearly you have a lot more expertise than I do or most of our listeners do. That goes without being said. But what do you make of this culture now where, and a lot of these doctors, they go online and they're able to diagnose the injuries, and then there's times that they get it wrong. What do you make of, like, can you really tell what happens just based off video, watching these guys out on the field when they suffer an injury?
It's a really good point, Zach, and that's coming out a lot more now, right? You have doctor podcasts, you have doctors on Twitter and Instagram, and you're right. Sometimes, they can get it right, and sometimes, we're like everybody else, we can get things wrong. Video is really helpful for a couple things, right? To your point about Tom Brady's ACL, you saw his foot hit the ground and it twisted and pivoted, and you saw it have that shift. Jameson Williams, right? National championship game a couple years ago. I use that video actually in my slides when I'm giving a talk about ACLs, because it's such a dramatic pivot shift that his knee had. So there are some things that when they happen, you can see, right? Fractures, guys' bones are sticking the wrong way, Cam Scadaboo's ankle, something's wrong right away. And so with those, when you go back and analyze the video, you can see some things. The problem that, again, we run into is that we're, call it mortals, right? And we're talking about guys who are at the top of their game, and they're as tough as they can be, and things that would hurt you and I may not actually hurt them. And so when you see things on a video, guy lands on his shoulder pretty hard, we would probably have an AC sprain. They may not, because they have so much muscle mass to protect their shoulder. Same thing for the knee. You see a guy limp off with a knee issue, you said, oh my goodness, he probably tore his meniscus. Maybe not. Could have just been some early cartilage wear in his knee. And so we try to hazard all these guesses and come up with these, potential theories about what happened to people. The reality is teams are going to play it close to the vest. They're the only people that actually know what's going on. And so they kind of give information out as needed. I agree. It's good in the sense that we get to talk about it a little bit more now. And I think it's exciting and kind of fun, but also probably stresses people out a little bit more than you need to. So you always take it with a grain of salt, wait for the actual injury report to come out, see what the team has to say, because they're the only people that actually are in the know.
And I know I'm going to ask you to speculate here after what you just said. We're 12 days away from the Super Bowl. If this is just shoulder soreness and every athlete heals differently and every person heals differently, like Drake May should feel as close to 100% and he's going to feel by Super Bowl Sunday, 12 days now, if this is just shoulder soreness, right?
Completely agree. And so I think, I do think you'll probably see a couple of days of him either getting held out or having some limited practice, right? Because again, there's no reason to have him this week put any stress on an area that's not 100%, right? You want him 100% in 12 days. And so there's no reason to have him go back early this week if things are still lingering. So he'll get treatment morning and afternoon, at least twice a day with his training staff. If there's any type of anti-inflammatories they have to put him on, they will. Probably not something where you're going to look at a steroid injection or a PRP injection at this point. The problem with something like a PRP injection is that would put him out for a couple of weeks, so he's definitely not going to get that. The question is, if he is dealing with a lot of inflammation, a couple of days go by, it's still lingering, then sometimes they'll throw a steroid shot at this just to help quiet it down. And again, if this is next Sunday we're talking about, that gets a little bit dicey from a timing perspective. With that extra week, it makes things so much easier for the players and the training staff. Having that extra week to recover is tremendous. That's why we always talk about bye weeks, how important they are. When you talk about having an extra week here, everybody that has any type of small, lingering, nagging injury, those should be almost better within the next 12 days.
Are you over Notre Dame missing the college football playoff?
Brother, man, I got to tell you, it was not a good day in my household when that happened. I will say, listen, kudos to Miami. I mean, they obviously did a great job. And I think the discussion really was, I think most people have said, against Notre Dame and Alabama. And obviously Alabama got boat raced in the playoff. And so, it is what it is. You can't go back at it. I just wanted to see Jeremiah Love one more time, in some big games, because that run against Penn State last year was probably one of my favorite plays I've ever, watched or, in any Notre Dame football game ever. And I would have loved to see what he would have come up with. But, there's next year, you move on. You got to get ready for next year. And you got to, as Marcus Freeman says, leave no doubt.
And the good thing for you Irish fans and you being a former wide receiver is now you just make the top 12 in the final standing. It doesn't matter who's in front of you. Boom, you'll be in the college football playoff, which, like, everyone's crushing Notre Dame. Oh, go join a conference. If you could get that and have your own independent deal and basically get to decide who you get to play, I don't see why Notre Dame would ever join a conference.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I mean, if we start to take a downhill turn, right, if you have a couple bad years and you don't wind up making it to any relevant bowl game, then there's obviously some money involved in that. And so you wind up losing out because there's no profit sharing for you with the rest of the teams in your conference. Or if NBC said, we don't want to have a deal with you guys anymore, then obviously it pushes the needle. I think the conference thing, though, is a little bit funny at this point when everybody's pushing people to join a conference because, back in the day when you were in a conference, you played almost every team in that conference during the season. Now that's not even the case. So I kind of understand the conference argument, but not really anymore because you're only going to wind up with probably 2 or 3 real conferences after a couple more years. I mean, do you think there's going to be this many conferences in college football, 2-3 years down the road?
Probably not. I've always thought it's going to be the haves and the have-nots. Like maybe they'll make the G5 or G6, whatever they are now, do their own playoff. Maybe they'll just consolidate the Big Ten and the SEC and just have those 2 conferences. But the other thing is, I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC really want to add that many more brands because then they got to share more of the TV money. So I think this 4 Power 4 conference run they have right now, it's working. Eventually, can I see it shrinking? Yeah, I probably think you're right.
Yeah, I wonder if the ACC is going to wind up holding up. I think the Big Ten and the SEC, like you said, I mean, the obviously powerhouses. The Big Ten has been just on fire lately, so we'll see how they continue to go. But yeah, I think things will probably change.
Except that USC, I'm annoyed with that USC. I want to see USC Notre Dame, those putty cats with the Trojans.
Me too. I love that game. I mean, that same thing with Notre Dame, Michigan. I mean, my brother went to Michigan. It's a terrible week in our household, but I love watching Notre Dame, Michigan. Those are great games, and so it's a little bit disappointing. I loved watching actually all the former USC athletes come out and like lambast USC for not signing up for that game again.
So he's the chair of orthopedics at Phelps Hospital, also the director of orthopedics for Westchester, and he knows what he's talking about compared to Dr. David Chow. He is Brandon Erickson. Doc, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Zach, as always, man, have a great day. Good luck to your Pats.
You got it. Thanks so much. There he is, Dr. Erickson, one of the best in the business. Whenever I need some advice on how an injury could impact a player, we do go to him, and hopefully he got all that stuff right. If you didn't see it, here is Brian Suter. He did a good job recapping all this stuff with David Chow. He's also a doctor. This was him discussing and laying out the whole Drake May injury conspiracy.
May injured his right shoulder on this play this past weekend against the Denver Broncos, according to Dr. David Chow. Is this legit or just looking for a storyline? Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Suter, and the goal in this channel is to teach you more about the medical side of the sports world. A lot of you have probably heard about Dr. David Chow, Pro Football Doc on X, SI Score, Sports Injury Central Score.com. This is what he said about Drake May in one of their most recent episodes.
Summary is, there's no question Drake May has a right shoulder injury.
That's a pretty bold claim. No question that Drake May has a right shoulder injury. To lead off this whole clip,
there is no question in my mind that Drake May injured his right throwing shoulder.
I'm the last person to be critical about looking back at plays and trying to analyze, see what happened with an injury, but that's typically in a situation where we've heard or seen clear evidence that somebody has an injury. And in the case of Drake May, to give Patriots fans some comfort, I simply don't see that. This was the play that Dr. Chow is referencing. Drake May scrambled. This is in the third quarter.
So there you go. That's Dr. Suter talking about laying it all out with Dr. David Chow. Now, I know Dr. David Chow a little bit, and he usually gets this stuff right. But there are instances where he gets it wrong. Like, I remember one year when Zach Wilson got injured in the preseason, and we threw him on right away. And I think he said it was either Achilles or ACL. I'm pretty sure he said that he tore his, his ACL, and it wasn't a season-ending injury. It ended up not being a season-ending injury for one Zach Wilson at the time. But that's what ended up happening, where you throw that out there and you say that he definitely, without question, suffered a shoulder injury. But the severity of it is interesting to me because, like I said to Dr. Brandon Erickson, there's a difference in being hurt and being injured. Patriots coach Mike Vrabel was on sports radio WEEI doing his weekly chat up in Boston. And this is what Mike Vrabel had to say on the Drake May injury.
Starting yesterday, the internet doctors have seen an issue in Drake May's shoulder following a hit during the AFC Championship game. Is he 100% healthy today as you guys get ready?
There's not a player on our team that's 100% healthy.
Is he healthy enough to play at a high level?
I would imagine we'll go through the injury report, and whenever we have to turn that in, we'll turn it in. But nobody's 100%. This will be our 21st game.
You talk about that all the time. Everybody's journey's different. And where did that come from? Because I think that really resonates with players.
It's the truth.
Right.
All I try to do is look at things that are actually factual and talk about them and bring them to life and say, somebody was drafted in the first round, somebody drafted in the third round, somebody got cut, somebody played 4 years for the Steelers, didn't start a game, and then started the next 10 years of his career. It's just go on and look at it. It's all different. And that's what the reality is. And sometimes it takes a second or third place, or sometimes it takes getting cut and saying, you know what, that sucks, and I'm lucky that I got another opportunity. I'm never going to let that happen. Or, hey, I got traded, or hey, this happened. Or I got called up from the practice squad, and I didn't think that I was going to get called up for the practice squad, but I was ready to go. And then they kept calling me up, or then they signed me onto the roster. That's just the facts.
Steph,
It wasn't like I made that up. That's really happened.
Well, I mean, I played in the league a long time, and I feel like
how long? You said you've been to 2 Super Bowls. You played in the league a really long time. Like, is this your resume here? We're not signing you this week.
I feel like I've never heard that. You don't want to sign me? I mean, you sure? You could use the third string tight end. I'm not going to do anything.
Third string.
A fourth string?
So I watched that video, and I'm like, all right, it's about the injury. Then it's about everyone else's journey. I go to myself, that's a word salad right there. And then I also say to myself, is that just gamesmanship right now? Because it should be a very simple question. It should be a simple. There was a report online that your quarterback suffered a shoulder injury. Is he hurt? Did he suffer an injury? And when the coach just says, oh, well, no one's 100% this time of the year, he's not wrong. But it's not really telling me the severity of this injury. So Mike Vrabel had a chance to clarify that answer today. He does that show in Boston on WEI. And then he had his, one of several chats they'll have before the Super Bowl with the local reporters. And this was brought up once again. Here is the Patriots coach in Mike Vrabel.
Something that's been maybe blown a little bit out of proportion on social media.
Probably. And here's what I'm going to start saying about this radio show. This is like the Miranda rights. There's nothing that I can say on there that can be used against me when I come back in here. So going forward, that's what we're going to have to say. Those are like free interviews. I'm in there. We're doing breakfast shots, and But I think that everybody, and including Drake, is not 100% at this part of the year. And we'll do everything that we can to help our players be prepared and get ready for this game.
So there you go. Mike Vrabel said it's been blown out of proportion. It probably has been blown out of proportion. And he once again reiterated that Drake May, including a lot of their players, aren't 100%. The question then becomes, how much of an impact is this going to have on Drake May in the Super Bowl? If you ask me right now with the information that we have, I'm going to say it's going to have little to no impact in this game. I don't think this is a big deal right now. It seems like a big deal if you just read social media. But once again, I'll reiterate, there's a difference in being hurt and just being injured. Could Drake May be a little bit hurt? Could he be a little bit sore? Yes. Do I think it's to the level where, oh my goodness gracious, this is going to impact his performance in the Super Bowl right now? And it could change through the week and it could change through next week. I would say no. Zach Gelb here with you on 365 Sports. We will take a timeout. When we do come on back, we got to get into this mayhem that's going on in college football. It looks like Darian Mensah is going to be the quarterback at Miami next year. Trinidad Chambliss is still trying to get another year of eligibility in college football. Should he just go to the NFL? And we got to touch on something that came up last week, but we'll get to it when we come on back in 2 minutes. Dabo Swinney going after Ole Miss for tampering with one of their players that they just signed. Zach Gelb here with you on 365 Sports. We'll be back in a matter of about 2 minutes.
The 4-burner, side sear burner with Clearview Glass stainless steel grill from Monument Grills. Made of tempered glass, which is strong, insulated, and allows you to check your grilling without lifting the lid. Our porcelain-coated cast iron cooking grids offer a large cooking surface of 513.3 square inches, primary cooking area, with even heat cooking. The Monument Grills include LED control knobs and are easy to light with pilotless electronic ignition. Better grilling, better value, Monument Grills.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
I'm Abby Dommett, 2023 CrossFit Games athlete, and I use Airwave because it helps me breathe easier and stay more relaxed during my workouts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very discreet.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, welcome back in. Zach Gelb here with you, the Zach Gelb Show on 365 Sports. Willie Cologne's going to join us coming up at about 3:10 p.m. Eastern time today, 2:10 p.m. Central. Willie just texted me. He's stuck in a little bit of traffic, so he'll join us about 10 minutes past 3 o'clock here as we're coming today live from Florida. I should get back on a plane tomorrow to head back to snowy New York City, where they got dumped with a foot of snow. So was not able to get out on my original flight on Sunday, was not able to get out on Monday, and I didn't want to sit there and wait for like a connection, and it would have been a 2-hour and 50-minute trip would have turned into 10, 11, or 12 hours. So I will be on an early morning flight tomorrow, right at about 8:15 a.m. Eastern. But not too early. I've been on earlier flights and should be able to land in New York and then have enough time to get back to my palatial yet not overly ostentatious estate in the city to do the show tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We are live, coming up the rest of the week from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time. And then on Monday and Tuesday of next week, we will do the shows in New York City. But then Tuesday night, I will get on a plane, about a 6-hour and 57-hour flight to San Francisco. I'll be seeing Garrett Ross in person. I'll be seeing Smokey in person, Andrew Valade in person. I'll also be seeing Paul in person, and we will do the Zach Gelb Show live from Radio Row as we will do shows there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The guest list right now, as I've been working around that, These are the guests so far scheduled to join us during the course of the 3 days. Tedororo McMillan from the Carolina Panthers, former New England Patriot Logan Ryan, Sean Merriman's going to join us, Jeff Garcia, Dennis Pitta, and Todd Heap. I believe we'll have my buddy Deion Dawkins join us. Cole Kmet from the Bears should be able to stop by. Sean Alexander, Lad McConkey, and Keenan Allen together. Kyle and Christian Juszczyk, Emmett Smith, and Devin Hester. More names to be added to that, but those are some of the guests that we do have scheduled with us right here on the Zach Gelb Show on 365 Sports. I want to get into a little college football today. And when we get into the college football world, the transfer portal and the lawsuits and all the speculation on if you're going to be able to play in college football, where you're going to play, it continues to run rampant. So Chase Parham, who is a 24/7 and CBS Sports writer, I call it 24/7 Sports. Some people call it 247 Sports. I don't know. 24/7 just sounds better to me. Like, I wouldn't call this 365 Sports. I would call it 365 Sports that we do our show on. But he had this tweet today. Trinidad Chambliss and his co-counselor, counsel William Liston, filed a memo for supportive motion for a preliminary injunction today in the quarterback's case versus the NCAA. The injunction hearing is expected to be before February 15th. The thing I will ask on Trinidad Chambliss, why do you want to go back to college? Now, there's a lot of financial reasons why you want to go back to college. We know that there's going to be a lot of money that Trinidad Chambliss can get if you go back to college, and that would be why that decision is probably driven by the finances. But there will be people that will say, hold on, I view Trinidad Chambliss as a quarterback that in this draft class, where the only quarterback that people like right now is Fernando Mendoza, people are hot and cold on Ty Simpson. I don't think there's any first-round buzz for Carson Beck. So you look at there not really being a number 2 quarterback in this draft class, and you do the math. I know there was one year Kenny Pickett was the one quarterback that did go in the first round, but usually you get 2 quarterbacks in the first round. Last year, it wasn't a great quarterback draft class. Cam Ward was the number 1 overall pick at Tennessee. The Giants ended up trading back into the first round after taking Abdul Carter at, I believe, 3rd overall. They ended up making the trade and pulling the trigger to go get Jackson Dart. So even though it's one of those situations where I don't think there should be 2 quarterbacks in the first round, there probably will be 2 quarterbacks in the first round. So the number 1 overall pick is going to be Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback out of Indiana. Then it becomes who's going to be the second quarterback. And Trinidad Chambliss is basically telling you, I don't expect, or he doesn't expect him to go back. You know, he doesn't expect to go into the NFL. If it's up to him, he would go back to college. Now, usually what I've seen in these lawsuits and these injunctions and these cases, the NCAA, 8 times out of 10, dare I say it, 9 times out of 10, they usually don't win in court. The judicious system, as I use words that I'm not usually good with, and I'm not an expert in the law world. Like, hey, that's why we brought on Dr. Brandon Erickson today. I'm not an expert in the medical world, and I'm not an expert in the law world. Like, let's just be real. If there is something with any medical problems or any litigious situations, Zach Gelb is not a good person to come talk to. That's why I bring in people that are intelligent and they have a good background in this. But following college football, especially in the last few years, specifically in the last few years, usually when these situations end up in court, the athlete usually wins. So the NCAA continues to look more and more like a powerless organization. And they could rule, oh no, Trinidad Chambliss, he's out of eligibility. And then some judge could walk in and they'll grant this injunction and they could rule in favor of Trinidad Chambliss. And then maybe he'll be the quarterback at Ole Miss. And you could just kick the can down the road until the season does play on out. It does feel as, and I don't know this for certain, I'm just going off feeling. I'm just going off the way that I remember this stuff being covered. Now more than ever, when the NCAA winds up in court, it usually doesn't end up well for them. But the thing I will just wonder here on Trinidad Chambliss, if I could tell him that you could be the second quarterback in this draft class and you could go in the 20s, or you could be picked 30 or 31 or 32, and you could be a first round draft pick. Would you rather go back to Ole Miss where, let me just take an estimation here, I guess. Will you be making anywhere probably between $4 to $7 million? So would you rather go back to Ole Miss where you're going to go compete for a national championship once again? You're going to be on the big stage. We'll see what Golding, the coach, does now with him running the operations for the entirety of the year. You got Keywan Lacey back. You guys were in the Final Four. Would you rather go back to Ole Miss at anywhere between $3 to $7 million and be the quarterback for one last year at Ole Miss, and maybe you're not going to be a first-round quarterback next year, but because of this draft class being weak at the quarterback position, option B could be there's a chance that you could be a first-round pick. Like, that's a decision that Trinidad Chambliss has already made. And he's taking the road of, I want this to be bumpy. I'm going to trust that I'm going to win in the courts. I'm going to trust that I'm going to win over the NCAA. And I want to go back to college. So that's a decision that has been made. And when that decision is made, it tells me this. I don't think Trinidad Chambliss believes that even if it's declared for the NFL draft, that he thinks he's going to be a first-round pick. And even though people watch him, and like myself, you, a lot of people that tune into 365 Sports, you guys are watching college football all throughout the year. So you are understanding of the good player that Trinidad Chambliss has been. And if you listen to me back where I used to be, since I've got here, I've been raving about the story of Trinidad Chambliss that he took over. And he was one of my favorite players to watch in college football last year. But when I watch him, do I think he's going to be a successful NFL quarterback? Do I think he's going to be a starting quarterback in this league for a long period of time? I don't. Sometimes there's just great college quarterbacks where their game just doesn't translate into the NFL. And I think Trinidad Chambliss, I wouldn't call him a great college quarterback, but I think what he displayed this past year is that he's just a very good college quarterback. And I think he knows maybe some of his limitations. Because if you just ask me, and maybe I'm a little naive here, maybe I don't understand the situation here, but if you ask me, Zach, there's a chance you could be a first-round pick. Would you rather roll the dice and take that chance and go to the NFL, or would you rather go back to college and make $4 to $7 million? Like, maybe because how this Trinidad Chambliss story came out of nowhere, and he was the backup quarterback when the season started. Heck, he almost picked to go with Casey Keeler to my Temple Owls. So maybe Trinidad Chambliss, I don't know what he made last year, to be clear. I don't know what his NIL deal, I don't know what his deal was. Maybe Trinidad Chambliss looks at this and say, hey, I got to go back because I'm not going to make a lot of money in the NFL. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hang in the NFL. I'll be able to get $4 to $7 million guaranteed, where the NFL, I don't even know where I'm going to be drafted. That's a decision that I think he's making. And that's why he's aggressively pursuing this. But him aggressively pursuing this tells me he doesn't believe that he's going to be a first-round quarterback. And in a weird way, even though I presented it the way that I just did, I don't think he's wrong. Like, I'm not faulting him for going down this road, but I keep on hearing people say, well, what happens if he's a first-round pick? I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick. If there's going to be two quarterbacks that go in the first round this year, without question, Fernando Mendoza is going in the first round. We all know that. But if another quarterback's going to sneak into the first round, it's probably going to be Ty Simpson. And the last month at Alabama, Ty Simpson was no good. His last 4 games or so, he was horrible. But it also looked like he was injured. And there was a moment in the season where people thought Ty Simpson could be the first or second quarterback off the board. Now we fast forward to how the season ended. People are questioning him, but there's been no second name to emerge. Like, the second name that has emerged is Trinidad Chambliss, where people are like, oh, he could be a first-round pick. I don't think he will be. But he's even telling you, I don't even think I'm going to be a first-round pick. I don't think I'm going to be a first-round pick if I come out of college right now because he's trying to fight to get another year of eligibility. Would I use a first-round pick in Carson Beck? Heck no. I wouldn't. And quite frankly, I wouldn't feel great about using a first-round pick on Ty Simpson out of Alabama. I wouldn't. Now, maybe the Jets, who have 2 first-round picks, they end up taking him at 16, and they take the best player on the board that's not a quarterback at number 2 once Mendoza goes 1. That could be a possibility with an extra first-round pick that a team and some other teams have that situation as well. But am I expecting Ty Simpson to be a franchise quarterback, a top 10 quarterback in this league? No, I'm not. But it doesn't mean that he can't be. So I think ultimately, and I don't know which way that this is going to go, but if you made me take an educated guess right now and go, Zach, throw a few darts on the board. These are the 2 darts, or 3 darts actually, I'll throw on the board. The easiest one, Fernando Mendoza, first overall pick to the Raiders. The next one, I'm going to say Trinidad Chambliss wins this whole situation up against the NCAA, and he'll be at Ole Miss next year. And then the final one, I'm going to say Ty Simpson is the second and last quarterback to be drafted in the first round for the 2026 NFL draft. Now, let's get to this Darian Mensah situation. So it came out that Darian Mensah, right, who was at Tulane this past year at Duke, my understanding, they thought they had like an agreement for a 2-year deal with him being at Duke with NIL, but there's no way to regulate this. There's no checks and balances. There's no CBA. There's a lot of times from just people I talk to, there's an agreement that's made, but there's no way to really enforce it. Because college football right now, it truly is the wild, wild west. That's what this is right now. There is no one that is able to tell you how things are going. They can tell you how things are supposed to go, but there is no governing body right now that is enforcing these rules and telling you this is what happens. You make this decision, you have to stay. So Darian Mensah and Duke were kind of in this whole feud where clearly Darian Mensah was at Tulane, then goes to Duke, had success this year at Duke. Darian Mensah could make more money and also play at a bigger program, even though Duke won the ACC this year, but clearly they didn't make the college football playoff. And Darian Mensah is now looking at a situation, okay, I had this agreement with Duke, but it's a loose agreement, right? I could get out of it if I really want to, but I see that I could go to Miami. Well, Cam Ward just had success there. He parlayed that into being the number 1 overall pick. Carson Beck had success there after he was, written off as the quarterback at Georgia. I could go from being the quarterback at Tulane to Duke to Miami. Yeah, financially, that's best for me. And then also, if I want to be an NFL quarterback one day, I could go to a really good Miami team, and I could put up, even though he's put up prodigious stats the last 2 years, I could put up stats where this isn't always right and this isn't always fair. You put up good numbers at Tulane, what do people say? It's at Tulane. I get it. Tulane was in the college football playoff this year. If you put up good numbers at Duke, people look at it sideways and go, you're the quarterback at Duke, so what? You won the ACC this year. You go put up prodigious numbers at Miami, that's a different conversation. That's a different story. To maybe the college football purist, it's not a big deal, and they could identify and recognize talent if you're a player at Tulane, or you're a player at Duke, or you're a player at Miami, and you could understand the talent. But to a lot of people, and maybe you could say the college football snobs, or you could say people that just parachute into the sport, people go, you're at Tulane, you're at Duke. Yes, even though you're at Duke, you're going up against the ACC, but it's not the SEC, it's not the Big Ten. So people look at that and they look at it a little bit sideways. You go to Miami, even though it's in the ACC, and you put up huge numbers and you play in big games, it has a little bit of a different feel to it. So, from a money standpoint, and also improving his draft stock in the future, if I'm Darian Mensah, of course, it's obvious. It may not be right. It may not be fair how this stuff all went down. He may not be honoring his word or whatever he signed, like, and all those specifics. That's up for other people to decide. But if you ask me, Zach, would you rather be the quarterback at Tulane or Duke? I would say I'd rather be the quarterback at Duke. He left Tulane, he went to Duke. If you then tell me, hey, Zach, would you rather be the quarterback of Duke or Miami? Yeah, I'd rather be the quarterback of Miami. So today it comes out that Darian Mensah and Duke have agreed to a settlement of their dispute that will clear the way for the quarterback to transfer to another school. That's what his agency announced today. Mensah is expected to transfer to Miami now that his dispute with Duke has been resolved, sources tell ESPN. So that's going to work out for Darian Mensah. Now, this goes back to last week. I am not a huge fan of Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney, I think, is arrogant. Dabo Swinney, I think, is extremely stubborn. And Dabo Swinney has not put Clemson the last few years in the best position where this year they bottom out. But in other years, like 2 years ago, they'd be like, oh, hey, we still won the ACC. But just winning the ACC, I once said this to Isaiah Simmons when he didn't like my criticism of Dabo Swinney. I said to a credit and a testament to what Dabo Swinney has built at Clemson. Dabo Swinney made the standard not just winning the ACC. It was legitimately competing for a national championship and winning a national championship. And I don't think Dabo Swinney right now is the right guy to win his next national championship at Clemson. I think the best Dabo Swinney can do now is just win the ACC. And he wasn't even able to do that last year as Clemson was just god-awful. And Dabo has been stubborn with NIL. He's been stubborn with the transfer portal. But he's changing those tunes a little bit. So Luke Farrelly, who was at Cal, freshman linebacker, he transferred over to Clemson. And how many times do you see, a player's going here, and then he winds up elsewhere? But it's a little bit different when you're already enrolled and you're already on campus. Like, for example, it was reported that Nebraska was going to get Kenny Minchey. And he told Nebraska, hey, he's going. And then Kenny Minchey winds up at Kentucky. And there have been other situations where players told the school he's going to go, and then he doesn't. But it's different when you're already there. So I was reading this article on ESPN where Sweetie then detailed a series of alleged communication from Golding, that's the coach at Ole Miss, to Farrelly that stated during an 8 a.m. class, Sweeney said Farrelly received a text message while he's already on the campus at Clemson that read, I know you signed, but what's the buyout? That was followed by a photo of a $1 million contract offer and phone calls from quarterback Trinidad Chambliss and former quarterback Jackson Dart attempting to lure Farrelly back into the portal. Farrelly told Clemson he had no interest in leaving, according to Sweeney, but Farrelly's agent Ryan Williams declined to offer copies of those text messages unless Sweeney said that the Tigers added a second year to Farrelly's contract that included a $1 million extension. Clemson declined that offer. So that's what you have going on right now, where you have a kid that commits, you have a kid that has already begun taking classes at Clemson, and then another coach is clearly tampering. And if we said tampering in the NBA, if we said tampering in the NFL, it would be investigated and there would be a punitive action. But tampering in college football now, it's not tampering. That's just the reality. That's what goes on, where tampering happens all the time. But there's different levels of tampering. Like, a kid's going to hit the portal, so you reach out to him before the portal opens. You communicate, we're going to offer you through your representation X, Y, and Z. That thing goes on all the time, and there's no way to stop it right now. But once a kid commits to a school, if I'm getting this story right, and he's taking classes, And the coach, when he just made that decision to go from Cal to Clemson, goes, "What's your buyout? I'll pay your buyout. I'll get you out of the deal, even though you're already taking classes there, even though you're already a part of the program." That doesn't seem right. For example, if Zach Gelb was a coach in college football, and let's say I was the head coach at, let's go Oregon. All right, let's say Zach Gelb is the coach at Oregon, and I'm watching tape. My scouts, my coaching staff, they're doing their due diligence, and they go, "Zach, there's a kid right now that's at Temple." I'll even use my alma mater. There's a kid at Temple we think's going to be a big player. I would sit there and go, "Okay, it's November. There's a few weeks left in the season. Let's actively pursue this kid now. Finish out your season at Temple. When the season ends or the transfer portal window opens, this is what we're offering you." Because if I don't do it, there's not just going to be somebody else. There's going to be about 20 other schools that do it. But if I really want this kid and my kid's gets identified that my staff, that's who we want, at the end of the season, or we could do this right now, but you can't leave till the transfer portal window opens, this is what we're going to give you. That I think is fine. That I think is okay. But if, let's just say, that kid that I was pursuing, and, he says, "You know what, Zach, you're the coach at Oregon. I appreciate the offer. I'm going to go to Michigan." Okay. So you go to Michigan. Then let's say once he goes to Michigan, he's starting to take classes, and I'm sitting there and I'm going to myself, you know what? I'm still really interested in getting that kid that we let go to Michigan. We identified him at Temple. Obviously, Michigan did as well. For whatever the reasons were, we lost out in the NIL battle. And he committed to Michigan. He's already taking classes. You got a decision that you can make as a coach. Do you just take the L? And do you say, "We tried, we courted him, we even tamper with him, but now we're going to extra tamper"? Or are you just going to take the L or do the extra tampering? That's a decision. And the initial tampering, and this is what happens when you open Pandora's box. This is what happens when you allow some tampering to go on. Then you don't know when enough is enough, and you don't know when it stops. That's the fundamental root of this issue. It should be either you could tamper or you can't. Once you go, "Oh, well, we'll accept a little tampering," but this is to the extreme, that's where it gets complicated. And even though I just said the first tampering isn't a big deal, the second tampering, I'm not saying Coach Golden is wrong for it, because there's a system where you can't really enforce much. And if you really want the player, go get the player. But why couldn't you get the player the first time? That's my question. Why didn't you get the player the first time? So I look at this. The first tampering, I think you could say, not a big deal, even though there's an issue in that, because then it leads to where we're at now. The second tampering, that seems like a big deal. Like, I'll play Dabo's comments in a second, but let me bring on Garrett Ross here real quickly for the first time today. Like, this tampering stuff in college football, it's a mess right now. And I think you would agree with me. If you know a kid's going into the portal, you got to get to the front of the line even before the race even starts. But,
yeah, I mean, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but the second one, once he's already there at Clemson, and then you're saying, "Oh, I'll pay your buyout even though you just got there," that's what seems wrong to me.
Yeah, I think that's crossing the line. And I think you bring up a good point. Like, if you're evaluating it and you see it, why didn't you take the extra measures or the extra steps to do it? I think once you're on campus with somebody and you've already put your name in the transfer portal and you said, "All right, I'm going from," like you said, Temple to Clemson, and they're there, once you're on campus, it should be hands off. And I think that's probably, like, even if it's like underlying or like baseball rules, the unspoken words, I think that's where we're at right now. But this is just going to continue to happen. Like, this was the second time this has happened. Ole Miss wasn't the first school to do this. It was just Dabo finally stepping up and calling it out. I don't know who's you're going to have step in and take the measures needed to fix this, because who's running this? Like, you're not, it all goes back to the money. And I don't know, man. This is a mess.
Well, that's the thing. No one can fix this.
Yes.
Because no one wants to be like Nick Saban doesn't want to be the commissioner. And even so, the SEC and the Big Ten aren't going to give up their power. We have NCAA. So technically, everyone's under the same umbrella, but they're not because there's so many holes in the umbrella where the umbrella is not keeping you dry right now. The NCAA is powerless right now. Going back to the Trinidad Chambliss situation, I truly do believe that. So in this case, it is the wild, wild west. Pandora's box is open up. And once you let the toothpaste, this is the cliche I'll use. Once you let the toothpaste out of the tube, it's impossible to get it back in. And even though I could sit here and go, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, I do like players getting paid. I do like players having the ability to transfer and not sit out a whole year. But we allowed, it went from 0 to 100 real quick. That's what it did. It was not like 0 to 10 and you gradually go to, it was 0 to 100. And it's not like college football is in a bad spot right now. College football playoff was still awesome. It's been awesome the last 2 years. And it's been as open as it is ever. The SEC hasn't won a championship or even been to a championship in the last 3 national championship games. However, there's no way to control this mess right now. And even yet, you had the president of the United States, and I know he chimes in on everything, and he's got bigger fish to fry. But he's like, oh, this pay structure right now in the NCAA, it's not sustainable. So you have the president giving his opinions. You got people saying we need Nick Saban to be the next commissioner of college football. He knows this is a mess, and he wants no part of it. That's why he retired. He didn't want to deal with NIL anymore. So, and then you have the NCAA, which runs everything, but they're not even able to enforce anything. So it's a mess. And if you complain about it, people go, well, shut up and coach. Right? This is the system. Stop whining. And usually I would say Dabo Swinney is a crybaby. He's a whiner. He's insufferable. He does the whole woe is me stuff, but I think he's right here. There is a line. Garrett Ross said it perfectly. There's unwritten rules. And even though we are allowing tampering to go on, there's a difference in tampering when you know a kid's going to eventually hit the portal. And then there's a difference where the kid hits the portal, signs at a place, starts going to classes in one place, and then the coach, when the kid just signed, is trying to buy him out to go take him to his other school, to another school. That to me just doesn't seem right. But if you allow the initial tampering, it's tough to then police the secondary tampering. But I'm going to say this, the initial tampering, I understand. The second tampering, I don't think that should be allowed. That's what happens when you allow tampering. Let's hear from Dabo Swinney talk a little bit about this situation. This is from last week.
There's tampering, and then there's blatant tampering. Tampering 101 is when you're talking to kids who aren't in the portal. Tampering 201 is when you've already negotiated the deal with the kids not in the portal. Tampering 301 is when you got a kid who's gone in the portal, signed somewhere, moved there, gone to classes, and you're texting them while they're in class. That's like a whole nother level of tampering. And it's total hypocrisy because all this is going on while they, on the other side, are trying to fight their defensive end from going in the portal. They have accused publicly others of tampering with their roster and their players while they are over here tampering. All right, so this is just a really sad state of affairs, and it's, to me, we have a broken system. And if there are no consequences for tampering, then we have no rules and we have no governance. It's really just that simple, okay? This is not, let me be very clear. This is not about a linebacker at Clemson. I don't, listen, I feel sorry for I think it's a symptom of a system that you have a kid that I meet at 9:30 and he's signing the next day. Like I feel sorry for the young man, to be honest with you. I blame the adults. And again, if you want to have adult world, then there needs to be adult consequences. Okay? So But this is not about a linebacker at Clemson. And I don't want anyone on our team that doesn't want to be here. I would never want that. All right? But let me tell you what it is about. It's about the next kid. And it's about the next kid. And it's about the message that is being sent if this blatant tampering is allowed to happen without any consequences. This is about protecting our program. This is about college football. That's what this is about.
You may not like Dabo Swinney. I don't. But I thought he was spot on there. I thought he was definitely spot on there. Now, he knows it. And there's old guard and there's a new guard of coaching. There's guys that have been around the block, that are older, that it used to be their way or the highway. Now they got to adapt. Or there's a new way of coaching where you don't got to be the best at X's and O's. It's about the money, how you use the money, and how you can get those players to take your money. And those younger coaches are eventually going to phase out the older coaches because either you're going to see coaches that go, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to retire. I made my money. I don't need this stress, or maybe I'll leave college and just go to the NFL where it's stress. There's a lot less stress there. Like maybe, that has happened. That will continue to happen. And eventually we'll get to a time where it's just these new wave of coaches that this has already been grandfathered in. This is the way that it works. And everyone's going to be on the same page and understanding of what goes on. But when you have the old guard dealing with the new guard, and now, even though you could say, well, Zach, back in the day, you don't think those old guard coaches were paying players? Yeah, they probably were. And the hypocrisy here is they were getting away with it, and now they want these rules to be enforced when it comes to paying players. And you get some kid in, and then another kid gets potentially bought out and goes somewhere else. Like, yeah, it's a mess. It is. But that's a system that it works right now. And Dabo knows, and the old guard, you see this now more than ever, especially in college when we're begging for coaches with personality. They feel to speak against the institution and the system right now, because if there's no consequences for tampering, there's not going to be any consequences or fear if you just call a spade and everyone knows what's going on and you just say what's going on. So that's what Dabo's doing. Dabo knows the way of college football that he knew it is sinking. And he's going to go down with the ship that's sinking, and he's going to try to fight back when people are coming after his program. And what Dabo's saying makes sense. Like, I get it. I've said it. There's going to be initial tampering. Since you allow that, then there's tampering that goes way too far once decisions are already made. However, since you allow the initial tampering, what is the NCAA just going to say, oh, you could do that originally, but you can't do the secondary tamp? It's like, what? Like, what are we doing? And as much as you could bitch and complain about this, as much as we could all acknowledge, hey, some of this stuff isn't right. And like, if it is going down the way that it's been relayed to us with Clemson and Ole Miss, yeah, that's not right. But there's no way to enforce it right now. Whether it's this, whether it's cheating in other capacities, whether it's things that have just transpired in college football, the NCAA went from being this big in terms of power to now being like this big in terms of power. And since there's no way to implement these rules, and there's no way to keep order and balance and really carry out these rules, there's nothing you could do. Like, what do you do? Go reduce Ole Miss's scholarships a little bit? Find the coach? It's not going to prevent them. It's not. It's not going to prevent them whatsoever. So I don't know what the answer is. You would think, Zach, you cover a lot of college football. You vote for the Heisman Trophy. Don't you get a recommendation? Don't you have to have a recommendation? Don't you have to have at least some concept of a plan on how to? I don't. because the toothpaste is out of the tube. This is the wild, wild west. Everyone said that this was going to happen, and nothing has been done to bring it back in. And I don't know what can be done. And you could have all these coaches say, oh, Nick Saban needs to run college football. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to whatsoever. So there is nothing that can be done right now. And you could sit there and, right, everyone has like an idea guy. You could tell me, I got this idea. I got that idea. I got this idea. I got that idea. How are you going to implement that idea and control the situation right now? I don't think you can. This is uncontrollable right now. What is happening in college football, and don't get me wrong, I love college football. I want players to get paid. If a player doesn't want to be out of school, have your freedom to go elsewhere, and you don't have to sit out a year like it used to be, and all that stuff. I am pro-player in this, but there has to be some rules because it is so out of whack right now. It is so out of control right now. And I get it. There's going to be a lot of people like, oh, Dabo Sweeney, F him. I don't feel bad for him. But, because Dabo could be a pain in the ass. I get that. But Dabo's actually right. Except here's the thing. Dabo could utilize his platform to get his message out. But the message just gets out and it falls on deaf ears. Like Dabo right now is a big tree in a forest. And he fell. Like he just fell. He went on his rant. It was 10 minutes. People were like, they're seeing this tree grow. They're looking at this tree and they're like, wow, this is a magnificent tree. But then that tree fell after that 10-minute rant. And when you're a tree falling in a forest, even though people once looked at you and was like, oh, that's an impressive tree. Oh, look at that baby grow. That's impressive. Look at that tree. But when you fall in the forest at his college football right now, no one's really going to care because another tree's going to grow. And that's what's going on in college football right now. People know there are issues. People know there are problems. I don't know how the money is going to be sustained. Yeah, sure, you got boosters that keep on dumping in money and money and money and money. And eventually, yes, it is as open as ever. But how many of these teams are actually competing for a championship? Like we did it a week ago. It felt like there was like 4 to 6 teams that could actually win a championship this year, even though it does feel as open as ever. But the trees keep on falling. And when you're a tree that keeps on falling in the forest, there's other trees that pop up and there's other trees there. And there's nothing right now that anyone could say, and you could like talk to me and get at me, social media, Twitter, and Instagram at Zach Gelb, also on TikTok at the Zach Gelb Show. And you can give me like legitimate ideas that make sense. And I could sit there and go, you're right. I get what you're saying. Your idea is smart. But how do you get the ball rolling? In a system right now that is so open, so ambiguous, all these things are going on. How do you reel everybody back in? How do you get everybody on the same page and then enforce the rules? NCAA don't have the power to do that anymore. So I don't know, even if some of your ideas make sense and I could sit there and go, oh, yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know how you actually implement and then control the system. And that right now is the issue that we have. Zach Gelb here with you on 365 Sports. Take a time out. Come on back after these short messages.
For the past 4 years, we have trusted Jackery to keep us powered while on the road. The Explorer 5000 Plus provides 5,040 watt hours of portable power. Pair it with the smart transfer switch to power your entire house off the Explorer 5000 Plus.
I had a panic moment running my hands through my hair, and that's when I found Keeps. Keeps gave me the results that I was really looking for.
I definitely felt a lot more confident once I saw my hair coming back.
Keeps has given me the control of my hair back. Get your first month free at keeps.com.
Number 1, the best bang for your buck. Number 2, we put out educational content. Number 3, our customer service and sales team. Number 4, we work to ship all orders out same or next day. Number 5, reviews. Let the games begin.
Meet Beagle, your financial concierge. Find your old 401k. Discover your 401k hidden fees. Roll over and save thousands. Unlock your 401k and IRA. MeetBeagle.com.
The Lumi Charge is an all-in-one home desk lamp, speaker, and phone charger. It is a great... I need that for my son when he goes off to college.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, welcome back in. Zach Gelb Show on 365 Sports. Willie Colon is in the house, and he's wearing that Pittsburgh Steelers hat of his from the NFL Network. The Super Bowl champion is here with us. The Steelers haven't been close to going to a Super Bowl in a while, so Willie, I guess you wearing that hat 2 weeks away from the Super Bowl is the closest thing that we could get to it, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case. I was hoping my Steelers was destined for something great. Obviously, that didn't happen, but I think it's been a little bit of a whirlwind, obviously, with the stepping down of Mike Tomlin, and now we have our new head coach and Mike McCarthy, and it's a new era. Whether you appreciate it or not, the Steelers are moving forward.
You nailed it last time we talked. You said the Steelers were never going to move off of Mike Tomlin. The only way Mike Tomlin wouldn't be back is if he elected to say, I don't want to be the coach of the Steelers anymore. Even though you said that when he finally said he's done with the Steelers and he's moving on, how did you react and process it, especially with how close you were to Coach Mike Tomlin?
Yeah, I was emotional. I think a lot of guys who have played for Mike Tomlin and who was a part of, that era of Steeler football where we were not only consider ourselves the elite, but we prided ourselves with wearing the colors. And Mike Tomlin was the face of our franchise. And nevertheless, it's a weird position to be in as a former Steeler, because as much as I sit here and talk about how much I love him, it's hard not to acknowledge some of the deficiencies that he, wasn't able to accomplish. Obviously winning another Super Bowl, having multiple playoff runs and kind of being one and done. And at the same time, looking over the fence and realize how many players he impacted like me. I wanted to see Mike Tomlin go out with a Super Bowl, just like Bill Cowher did, and so it's a little bit of a back and forth emotionally for a lot of guys like myself, and all we can do is look ahead.
I think he did the Steelers a favor, because I think the relationship had to end, and the Steelers clearly didn't want to get rid of him. Like, Mike Tomlin was a really good coach, but when you're the coach of the Steelers and you haven't won a playoff game since 2017, that's just not acceptable, even though they never bottomed out because he was always above 500. So do I think Mike Tomlin can coach again in this league? Absolutely. He could get a job tomorrow if he wanted. The question I now have is, I heard Rondé Barber has that relationship with them in Tampa Bay. He came out and he said, I think Mike Tomlin's done with coaching and this is a retirement and he's over with it. Do you feel in your heart that he's coached his last game in the NFL?
I don't know. I can't speak for him. I definitely could see it being his last go, considering I know he has deep ties with the Steelers, and I also think he's he's at this point of career where he's accomplished a lot. His network and his input within the NFL runs deep. You understand he was a part of the competition committee. I can see him stepping on as a consultant for the NFL in some type of role. I can see him doing a lot of things, period. Coaching. I don't know if he necessarily wants to wear any colors or necessarily be in charge of another outfit. I think there's greener pastures for him, and it's just a matter of him really focus on what he wants to put his energy towards next.
So Mike Tomlin is out. Mike McCarthy is in. Willie Cologne's reaction on Mike McCarthy being the next coach of your football team?
How do I feel about it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm optimistic. I'm not like everybody else. Everybody feels like this is a lateral move. Yes, it's a conservative move. But I've been saying it all week. Listen, this hire makes sense to me from this standpoint. You need stability. You need an adult in the room. You need somebody who's ran an operation. Obviously, Mike McCarthy's superpower is the ability to develop young quarterbacks. You do have Will Howard on the roster. You do have Mason Rudolph sitting there. It's tough to kind of step into the draft every year and think you're going to get your next franchise quarterback. It doesn't work that way. And rebuilds take a long time, especially if you don't have a franchise quarterback in place like Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence. The Steelers are still looking for that guy, even though they have kind of Aaron Rodgers dwindling in the wind there. They don't necessarily have a guy for the future. So if you do have a quarterback who is still raw in a lot of different ways, why not get a coach who can develop him and grow into something? I think a lot of people underestimate a lot of these quarterbacks who make it to the promised land, like meaning the Super Bowl, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or Ben Roethlisberger or even a Drake May. There were teams that were built around these guys. So all they necessarily had to do was just do what they do, play quarterback. And so I think that's what the Steelers are doing right now. They're going to start building this roster up and putting pieces in places where the Steelers can thrive. I mean, they did win the division last year, so it's not like they're in dismay. Nevertheless, I think they need a facelift. They got to figure out what they're going to do with this aging defense and take another crack at it. And hopefully Aaron Rodgers wants to be a part of it.
Is there a part of you right? Like I looked at it like how you just described and how a lot of people are. It could be a lateral move with Tomlin and McCarthy. Was there a party that said, hey, they should try someone out that hasn't been a coach before, like a Clint Kubiak, like a Chris Shula?
Yeah, I thought Chris Shula was probably, was somebody who I liked for the position, considering that he has a background on both sides of the ball. Obviously, he's the defensive coordinator for the Rams, but he also acted as a pass game coordinator under McVay as well. So he knows both sides of the ball, and he's young. His family legacy speaks for itself. So I saw him as probably the worthy candidate. I also like Brian Flores, considering that he had coached for the Steelers in 2022. It kind of has that Steeler appeal as far as no nonsense defense is going to be the face of this team, and he wants his team to be aggressive and the most physical outfit on the field at all times. So those are my two top candidates. I would have been happy with either or.
What about Aaron Rodgers and his future? You think McCarthy, they reunite in Pittsburgh for one more year?
It's tough, man, because I don't know if, maybe you can help me out with this, Zach. I don't know if they left on best of terms. Now,
it was ugly at the end. It was ugly.
And so now supposedly everything's kind of under the bridge and they've moved forward and things are in a better place. I think for Aaron Rodgers, I still think he can play. I don't know. I know a lot of people kind of downed his ability to kind of throw the football last year, but I think he still has an arm. He can still make plays with his legs. He's tough. He dealt with some injuries and still played through it. Obviously, he dealt with the wrist and being casted up. I think it's just about putting pieces on the field that he can thrive with. If possibly you can make a move to get A.J. Brown where he can play alongside DK Metcalf. They were both, receivers at Ole Miss. They know each other. We need a run game, man. That's the bottom line. Steelers' run game hasn't been what it used to be. And then hopefully McCarthy and this offensive staff can figure out what they can do to kind of revamp that. Because, one way of kind of, adding some rhythm and stability within a passing attack, you got to have a run game. And so I love Jalen Waddle. I love Gainwell. I thought he was huge for us. But we need a consistent run game, and we need a scheme that can really fit our outfit.
You know, I
got to stop saying our. Like I still play for the Steelers, so I apologize.
The Steelers and the Jets, I don't think it's crazy. It's
Okay.
like if I talked about the Patriots, I didn't play, I just root for the team, I'll go we, and people will be like, oh, you can't do please. The two of us are not buttoned up broadcasters by any stretch. I saw you in the NFL Network this morning, and it's a different feel and all that stuff. But I look at Rodgers. He wanted to go to the Vikings last year. The Vikings didn't want him. I wonder with the struggles of J.J. McCarthy just to stay on the field, and when he's on the field, hasn't looked all that great. If he tries to force his way to Minnesota, maybe Minnesota tangos this offseason.
I don't know. I think Minnesota's done. I think they've kind of that ship has sailed. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't sit in the front office for the Minnesota Vikings. Nevertheless, I think J.J. McCarthy with him is a matter of growing and continue to figure out how he can stay healthy. And they put all their chips into, JJ. I mean, they let go of Sam Darnold. They told him, we love you, but we don't love you enough to keep you for that price tag. And they sent him up the road. Now he's touching his feet will be on Super Bowl grass in a week or so. So JJ McCarthy right now is the future. And as far as Aaron Rodgers, man, I think Aaron. I don't know what Aaron wants to do. I think anybody knows what he wants to do. Nobody knows where he could turn. I think all eyes feel like, he could either come back and make this another go, or he could set sail somewhere else, or he can hang it up. I think that's kind of the mystery. We're always at the mercy of Aaron Rodgers this time of year. We don't normally get our answer to July.
So you being someone that played for the Steelers and also being someone that played for the Jets, clearly Sam Darnold and the whole story well. Now to see that Sam Darnold's in a Super Bowl. Last year, it was a cool story, rejuvenating his career in Minnesota, but now this is a whole different level being in Seattle. Man, I keep on saying it. It's just simply unbelievable.
I think for Sam, man, I think it just shows his grit and fortitude. When he got to New York, man, he wasn't the problem. They just didn't have an offensive line. We didn't have enough. The Jets didn't have enough weapons. The defense wasn't as good as it should have been. It was just they needed more time to kind of build around them, and they didn't draft well. Right after, if they would have kept on, if they would have had a chance to hold on to Sam Darnold or held on to him, period, man, they could have possibly drafted Jamar Chase and maybe a Penei Sewell right after that, and they could have really started putting this thing together. That never fell into fruition. They sent Sam on a trade to Carolina. And he kind of, figured himself out with a couple of teams like the Panthers and Niners and Vikings, obviously, where he had success. And now he's a Super Bowl champion. I think Sam has always been a solid quarterback. I think he's always been one of those guys internally where he's driven to just be the best he can be. I don't think he looks to the exterior to motivate him to do what he needs to do. I think he genuinely believes that he's competent at playing the position. I think he's tough. People forget he was a will linebacker at one point. And I think people also understand that he's one of those guys that, he's just going to show him to put his best foot forward. And I think that's what's indicative about the game Sunday against the Rams. Underneath the lights, he shined. He threw for 346 yards and had 3 touchdowns. And he did it, in a fashion where he just looked like he can go toe-to-toe with Matthew Stafford, who I believe should be the MVP of the league. And so I think all of that speaks volumes, man. And when you listen to the guys around him like JSN and Kupp, and you talk about that offensive line, and they all believe that he's the guy. Like, Ernest Jones, who's their linebacker for the Seahawks, another journeyman, he stood on the podium early this season and said, hey, man, we're going to live and die with Sam. When you get that type of backing from your teammates, especially from a guy on the other side of the ball, that exudes confidence. And if you're Sam, that has to feel good because you finally found the home. And you found the organization that wants you to be in the building. So that's that. I'm just happy for him. I knew a little. I met him once or twice during his time as a Jet. Always a nice guy, stand-up, class act, man. And I hope he gets it done against the Pats in the Super Bowl.
If Aaron Glenn doesn't work out next year, will Willie Colon be courting one Mike Tomlin and having the recruiting pitch for Mike Tomlin to be the next Jets coach?
I don't know if Mike T wants that. I think right now I'm rooting for Aaron, man. I really am. I thought this year was tough. He showed Jet Nation that Justin Fields was going to be the answer. Obviously, that didn't happen. But also, I think there's some growth, and I think he's going to have to grow, and he's going to have to put a staff around these guys that the players can believe in, and that the staff can really elevate the roster, because I do think we have a good receiving core. with Garrett Wilson, you got Adonai Mitchell. You're talking about Mason Taylor at the tight end spot. We got a really good offensive line. Who knows what happens with Breece Hall? But there's enough there offensively. Defensively is where we got to get a lot better. The Jets, that is. And they got to figure out how can they get the best out of what they have right now, Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson, if that's even a possibility. So, I wouldn't go quarterback in the first round for the Jets. I would spend my whole the 3 draft picks we do have. I would just go all defense, man. Just start building. Every playoff team that is in or that made the playoffs right now had a defense. You got to build a defense up, especially if you're serious about making a run. You're talking about the Texans, the Patriots, Seahawks, Rams, even Chargers. They all have a defense, and even the Steelers. So if you're serious about turning this thing around, you got to build a defense up. If I was the Jets, spend all my money on getting defensive guys.
2 more, then we'll let Willie Colon run. The Buffalo Bills today named Joe Brady their head football coach. I know he was in line to eventually get a job, but this is now all on Josh Allen. I look at Josh Allen really as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I never, when I heard that he was going to be a part of the hiring process, I don't necessarily think that was a good idea. I always felt weird about a certain player having that type of autonomy. I think it separates you from the locker room because really now you're a part of the front office. You're just a guy that has a helmet. Nevertheless, Josh Allen is all-world MVP. He's in his prime. But they got to find somebody who can eventually get him over the hump. But Sean McDermott didn't lose that game. Josh Allen had four turnovers in the game against the Broncos, right? So it's weird, man, because I want to fire Sean McDermott. I believe in stability. I believe in, just continue to take a crack at it. I know he had been there for a long time, and they wanted to kind of, change the tune. But nevertheless, man, I thought he was a damn good head coach. Moving forward, I think, I'm frustrated that Brandon Beane seems like he's the one that was elevated and kind of, was kind of left out for the stoning, if you will. It seems like McDermott got all of it. But moving forward, Joe Brady, man, it makes sense because he's been in the building with Josh. He's also been a part of multiple coaching hire cycles, if you will. So he's interviewed with multiple places. And, Josh probably said, hey, man, why are we keep looking around when the guy that's, who I trust and believe in the most is right in the house? So I think it makes sense for them and in their organization. It makes sense for Josh and his offense. Now, the caveat right now is, you fired your offensive line coach, who's a damn good offensive line coach, and Aaron Cromer. You're going to have to replace him. You're going to have to get a defensive coordinator. And you're going to have to figure out how can you get some receivers to help Josh out in the passing game. I think they really underestimated Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and their impact. And they haven't got the guy. Keenan Coleman, who knows what happens with him. And hopefully he can mature and evolve like they plan. They hope he can. And right now defensively, they got to get an interior line. They don't have any guys. They don't have enough beef eaters that could hold the fort down. They were horrible against the run this year. So Brandon Beane is going to have his work cut out for him. And I think Joe Brady is a good hire, man. I've always spoke and talked highly of him. I thought he's done a hell of a job thus far for the Bills. Now he's the guy in the seat. So it's a different dog. Hopefully he can handle it.
Last thing I'll ask you, early Super Bowl prediction. Do you go the Seahawks or you go the Patriots?
I just think the Seahawks are the most complete team. I'm impressed by Drake May. I think he's ahead of schedule, especially in his second year. Defensively, they've only allowed 26 points through 3 games. I think they're peaking at the right time, but so is the Seattle Seahawks offense. They're also peaking. So I think it's going to be a hell of a game. But I just think all 3 phases, I feel like the Seahawks are the most complete. Really good offense. They have a run game. I thought he was going to take a hit, especially with Zach Charbonnet going down with the ACL. But they proved with Kenneth Walker they can get it done. And then defensively, man, you can't talk enough about that D-line led by Leonard Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence being a little bit of a castaway. You have, Jones, who I spoke about. You have Witherspoon and Wooten. All those guys play at a high level. And I think special teams wise, ever since the appearance of Rashid Shaheed, man, he's been a spark for that team, man. And everything he's been able to do special teams wise, being able to take a couple to the crib and have an impact on offense, man. I think they're just all together. With the coach and Mike McDonald has been able to instill, they just seem like the stronger team. But every time I say that, I feel like the team has an edge against the Pats, man. They show up and dominate. So we'll see. I just want to see a good Super Bowl.
He's Willie Colon, Super Bowl champion. Obviously, a great job, NFL Network, SNY. I appreciate you joining us, Willie. Thank you.
No, thank you for your time, brother.
You got it. There he is. On Adam here. Steelers related. So the Steelers hired Mike McCarthy, and that has been heavily discussed. And he was introduced today as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Stephen A. Smith, he was on, obviously, First Take yesterday, his show, and Ryan Clark is one of the co-hosts on the show, especially in football season. And Stephen A. is annoyed with Phillip Rivers getting an interview for the Bills job. Obviously, Phillip Rivers pulled himself out of the Bills job. I saw there was a joke on social media. It's the first time that Phillip Rivers pulled out of anything because of how many kids that Phillip Rivers does have. I don't really need to tell you the punchline there. The joke needs to be able to understand that one. But I guess because Phillip Rivers got an opportunity interview for the Bills job, Stephen A. Smith was really annoyed at the Pittsburgh Steelers for not giving Ryan Clark a chance to interview for the Steelers job. Let's hear Stephen A. Smith on First Take from yesterday.
I'm very upset going back to the Pittsburgh Steelers because I want to stay for the record, and I'm not joking about this. I'm dead serious. I believe that Ryan Clark should have been interviewed for the job. I mean it. I mean it. I believe that Ryan Clark, who I'm looking at right now, should have been interviewed for the job.
I wish I would have.
Phillip Rivers got interviewed
You know that ain't happening.
by the Buffalo Bills. I'm just saying, you the Pittsburgh Steelers, what's up? What's up? I know they love RC. I know they know he's a Steeler for life. I know they pick up the phone and call him and defer to him and ask his advice and stuff like that, or give him or make sure they express their thoughts to him. How come you can't interview the brother? You go sit up there and bring Mike McCarthy back at 62 years old. That's right, and that's what I'm saying. RC Ryan Clark should have been interviewed for the head coaching job of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Y'all gonna come to me years later. Remember this. Keep this in the archives. Stephen A. said it. You understand? This is what I'm talking about. These are the problems. Let's go on. Let's move on.
He's still upset about the Pittsburgh.
So obviously, Stephen A. Smith interviewed for the Bills job. So if you didn't like that, your then recommendation would be to have the Steelers, who already hired Mike McCarthy, but they should have, interviewed Ryan Clark. Huh? That's a head scratcher right there. That really is. So imagine if Ryan Clark, who apologizes more than a parent changes a baby's diaper. Imagine if Ryan Clark became the head coach of the Steelers. Every bad decision, he would get up there on a Monday and he would apologize for it. That one makes zero, and I mean absolutely 0 sense to me. So let's do one more clip here. So Mike Vrabel once said with Bussin' with the Boys, Taylor Lewan and Will Compton, that he would chop off his Pisha deal, his Johnson. I think you can understand what I'm talking about there. If it meant that he could win a Super Bowl as a coach. And he was saying, oh, he's already had kids, he's older, he doesn't get as much use as it once did. So Mike Vrabel was on Sports Radio WEEI earlier today, and Greg Hill and the crew there on the Greg Hill Show asked him about that. Now that he's in the Super Bowl, would he still cut off his Johnson in order to win the championship coming up on next Sunday? This is how Mike Vrabel responded.
On Bussin' with the Boys, you said you would be willing to cut off the most important male appendage to win a Super Bowl. Is that?
I mean, maybe I'll cut it in half, but I ain't cutting the whole thing.
I was going to say, is that still the plan, or
No.
is it?
That was just to get that young fledgling group, Taylor and Will, get them to fly in the podcast game, and it
so
took
you
off.
would not part with the whole thing.
No, don't. I mean, I say a lot of things I don't mean.
You do? All right.
Yeah, I do.
All
See you
right.
guys.
Well, listen.
This is way too long, too.
Congrats.
Garrett Ross. Cut off your Johnson in order to win a Super Bowl?
No, I would not. I would not. I'm holding on to mine for dear life. No, I'm not doing that, man. What about you?
No.
I mean, you already got multiple Super Bowls.
Yeah,
I'm a Washington fan in despair over here, and I'm still not doing that.
I would not do that. Like if you said, okay, a pinky toe or a pinky, I contemplate it.
Yeah, a little
My
Ronnie Lott
Johnson?
action. Yeah.
My Johnson? No. That's
No.
that's not happening. But I'm younger. You're a little bit older. The point Vrabel was making, he already has a few kids. Maybe the nookie time isn't as frequent as it once was when you have more responsibility, but that still doesn't move the needle for you to say, okay, snip.
No, I can't bring myself to do it, man. Right when I saw that, all I thought was Lorena bobbing. I'm like, no, we can't be doing this.
What was it in? What was the movie with Adam Sandler? Oh boy, was it? It was Mr. Deeds. When the remember when the football player, I guess he cursed out in front of a lady or something, and then Sandler gets on the phone, he tells the guy's dad, and the dad takes off the belt, and he goes to hit him. He's like, "No, Daddy, no!" Yeah, that would be my answer. Do you want me to cut off my Johnson for a Super Bowl? No, Daddy, no. Absolutely not. That won't happen. All right, let's wrap it up. Let's get to the poll question here on poll calculations for the day. Which team is feeling more seller's remorse now? The Tennessee Titans are saying goodbye to Mike Vrabel, or the Vikings and Sam Darnold? The answer is both. But if you made me pick one right now, I guess it's the Vikings for losing Sam Darnold. Sure, Tennessee under Mike Vrabel, he got them to an AFC Championship game. They were number 1 overall seed one year. He wanted out, though. Even though Tennessee did a terrible job at the end, he wanted out. The Vikings, they drafted J.J. McCarthy. I understood them moving on from Sam Darnold, but now you don't make the playoffs. No one knows if J.J. is going to be any good or not, and Sam Darnold's in the Super Bowl, and you have a talented team in Minnesota. I would say that Darnold and losing Darnold is the right answer here. They're probably more seller's remorse than Tennessee, even though, Tennessee's just irrelevant right now. The Vikings, they could be good if they just had a quarterback. And then some quick hitters here before I let you run. I know we only got 2 minutes left in the show, and then I'll say goodbye to you. Just the 4 biggest storylines for conference championship weekend, just real quickly since we weren't live yesterday. Sam Darnold getting to a Super Bowl is unbelievable. When he left Minnesota, it was, he rejuvenated his career, but he did not play well in the big games. Now he's off to the Super Bowl, and he's got one more dragon to slay, and that's the team that he once said he was seeing ghost up against. I thought Sean McVay had a terrible conference championship game. He should have challenged that play with Cooper Kupp. Instead, he just called the timeout, made no sense. 31-26, go for the 2-point conversion. There was just some situations there by McVay in that game that didn't make sense. Late in the game, take the field goal with still 5 minutes left. So I didn't think McVay had a good conference championship game. The decision by Sean Payton to go for it, he said this today, and this is what I said yesterday. I didn't have a problem going for it when they're up 7-0 and it's 4th and 1. The play call has to be better, and the line has to block. So it wasn't the decision to go for it that I have an issue with. It's what they ended up calling and the line not blocking. And then also, anyone saying the Patriots are lucky. Sometimes I'd rather be lucky than good. But everyone had the same opportunity to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, and the Patriots are there. And I know it's only a Tuesday, and I know people are going to call me a homer, and I know the game's not till next Sunday. And can the Seahawks win this game? Are they favorites to win this game? Yes. I feel pretty good about the Pats. I think Drake May's going to play well. The line's going to be the key to the game. Can that line hold up? The defense, I think, could force a turnover, but I think we're going to get a really good Super Bowl. I do. I don't think this is just going to be a Seattle Seahawks blowout. All righty. Thanks to Garrett Ross for getting us on the air today and surviving. As I stuck in Florida the last few days because of snow. Big thank you to Willie Colon for joining us. Also, Dr. Brandon Erickson as well. Saying there's not much to see here with the Drake May shoulder injury from Dr. David Chow. Big thanks to each and every one of you for tuning on in. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully in New York City, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. You can follow the Zach Gelb Show on TikTok at the Zach Gelb Show, Twitter and Instagram at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. And we'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.